The Navigators has been advancing the gospel of Jesus and His kingdom for over 75 years. And whether you've been involved a big chunk of that time or you're relatively new to the Navigators, one thing is clear. The culture we serve in the U.S. looks a lot different than it did 75 years ago.
Let's face it, we live in a culture that many of our great-grandparents, no matter who they were and where they lived, wouldn't recognize today. There's so many changes going on. Some of these changes are quite cool, like, for example, the increase in ethnic diversity. That allows for small things like a whole variety of food options. But also it is, we believe, a foreshadowing of the eternity that is to come, that we as believers get to live into. As John says in Revelation 7, there's going to come a day when the multitudes are gathered around the throne of Jesus. And there's going to be every nation, every tribe, every people, every language group. It really is going to be phenomenal. But there are also changes that are a lot more troubling. Things are changing, like the definition of marriage, the place of sexuality, even the meaning of gender. And other things keep shifting. Literally, we keep shifting around. The average American changes jobs every 4 years, moves 9 times in a lifetime. And all this change and shifting is leaving a lot of us isolated. Actually, in the last 40 years, the number of households in the American population that have only one person in them has doubled. Now 35%, over 1/3 of our households have only one person in them. And there's a lot of loneliness that's resulting. Duke University released a report a few years ago that said 25% of Americans surveyed said they had zero close friends with whom to discuss personal matters. And 50% said they had 2 or less. When we look at our culture, we see foreshadowing here too. We see foreshadowing of an eternity spent alone, apart from Jesus Christ and apart from others. We see a foreshadowing of an eternity spent, as 2 Thessalonians says, shut out from the presence of God.
Well, what's amazing then is, in this exact context, our triune God is showing up. He's not sitting around watching TV, surfing the news channels, or shaking his head in worried disbelief. To the contrary, just as the Father sent the Son 2,000 years ago, today the Spirit of God is at work in His people to proclaim and embody His good news. So here we are, we're in this culture. We're glad to be in this culture together at this time for His purposes. What about you? What about your context? How do you see these cultural changes affecting the lives of those where you live, work, and play? And how do you see our God in the midst of it all?